Hello.
Hello. Hello. Is this thing on? No, that's stupid. Hi. Welcome back to Shower Talk with Tina and Norm. Tina's staring at me, so I feel like I have to keep talking. I'm not sure why she's doing that, but
I'm waiting for
okay.
you to. I'm waiting for you to finish.
Finish what? We're just started.
What episode?
And that's a great that's an episode right there. We're all
What?
done. No,
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I don't know, what episode are we on?
52?
Yeah, I think it's 52. Well, if it's not, it's 51 because I know it's not 53. And who cares? We'll keep a track. It's just easy for us to keep track of the numbers.
It's the next one.
It's the next one, right? It's the one after the last one. And it's the one before the next one, right?
That's correct.
Okay. That makes sense. So, anyway, old ways, right? It was what we're going to call this one, the old ways. And we'll talk about the old ways in just a minute. But first, we've got to give a shout out, as always, to our sponsor partner,
Sorry Wellness
That's
at LA
right.
Tan in Donata in Wheaton, Illinois.
Yeah. We're getting our emerald laser treatment still.
Yes,
how
we
many?
are.
We still have a bunch left.
Oh God, yeah. I think we're only halfway done.
Yeah, about halfway. I think
You
you're
might-
halfway.
you-
I'm a little farther than
Yeah,
halfway.
I think so because you
But
had
it's
less
working
than
up
me.
here for
Hell
me.
yeah, it is.
It's working up here for me.
It's working a lot.
I have
actually.
to do other stuff for myself to lose a little down here, but
It's
this
working.
down here is easier than this up here for me. As I grow up myself. Hopefully nobody's watching.
It's definitely effective, just like they said it was. And
Absolutely.
and let's say we didn't do anything different.
Right. We did not. We haven't
Nope.
done anything.
It's literally just the laser.
That's not entirely true.
Okay.
Right. So no alcohol. So when you're doing
Oh.
the emerald laser
But we
at
don't really drink a lot of alcohol anyway.
Sorry
though.
Wellness, there's certain things because it's taking the fat and your body's flushing it out. So
Yes.
you have to drink a lot of water because
Yes.
it's going out your lymphatic system.
Mm-hmm.
You have to drink a lot of water. You're not really supposed to have carbonated stuff because that's
Correct.
rough for your kidneys, I think.
Yeah.
And
alcohol.
which is something I learned.
Yeah.
Alcohol obviously is not great for it.
We don't really drink a
And
lot.
then there was something else that they said not to do.
I think caffeine. You have to keep caffeine to a minimum.
Yeah,
So
to a minimum.
again,
Fortunately, that's.
I don't think that's something that
a lot,
we.
but
Right.
yeah.
I was gonna say I don't feel like. I mean, I guess for other people it might be, but for
Sure.
us it's like
No,
it's not a big deal.
right. I think I mentioned that one day at work, and they're like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's a minimum." When I Googled it, because nobody gives you a guideline, it was like 200 milligrams of caffeine, and that's like for good coffee, 2.5 cups of coffee or something like that.
Okay.
And somebody at work was like, "Oh my god, that's like a third of what I would do in a day." I'm like, "Oh, it's just okay, all right."
Then the laser might not be for that person
That's
that
right,
drinks a lot of
right.
coffee.
But
But what I meant
yeah.
by that, you're right, and thank you for correcting me. Is
I wasn't correcting.
no that we didn't do any when we
Oh,
said
yeah.
there wasn't any changes, like we didn't go on any
Right.
specific diet
Right.
or
It-
that's what I'm sorry I didn't make
Yeah.
that clear.
You
but
weren't.
yeah.
You're right. We don't. I'd have a couple cocktails maybe in a week's time, sometimes, and sometimes none.
Yep.
So it's not like we were drinking all the time and then cut it out
No.
where we would lose weight or anything.
And
like
we
that.
don't really
So,
drink any pop,
no.
hardly ever. So
Yeah, rarely. If anything, I was doing
iced tea.
Coke Zeros.
Yeah, an
but
iced tea.
Other than
So
that. So anyway, Sorry Wellness at LA Tan. They've got cryotherapy,
mhm.
red light, which we do every week, a couple times a week.
and it's helping you with your sleep, which is amazing.
We do. We go and we usually tan once a week.
Yep.
So we can look great for you guys.
Tan
10
10 minutes a week.
But no, it just gives us a little heat and stuff. Now with the summer coming, we'll be outside more. So
Absolutely.
it'll feel better. But anyway, check those guys out. If you mention us, I think they have a deal going right now. But either way, if you mention us, you get 10% off. If they have a special going, they're probably not going to give you the extra 10%.
That's correct.
So don't get pissy if you call them and they don't give it to you and you mention our name, okay? And don't stop listening just because of that.
And by the way, everyone, we should probably mention that you go for a free consultation, and everyone's situation is different depending on what body parts, what your
Right,
BMI
right.
is, what you're looking to do. So there is
Absolutely.
no, because we've had a lot of people ask us, how much does it cost, or how many times do you go, and whatever.
Yeah.
And we go twice a week because you have to give 2 to 3 days in between for your lymphatic system to
Right.
not get all clogged up.
And
So
the popular lawyer answer is, it depends. So you just have to go check it out. The consultation's free. Go do it.
absolutely.
So,
It's
if you
worth
have
it if
questions-
it's something you want to do.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, you want to call them first because that's how people are. We're weird. You can reach out to us. You can call us. Our names are all over the internet, and not because of the show, just because.
It
But
doesn't hurt.
it does not.
You literally just lay there 15 minutes on your back, 15 minutes on your stomach,
Right.
and the little green laser just,
Right.
you don't feel it. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't burn. It doesn't touch you. There's no downtime. It's not cutting you open, anything. It's just
Nope.
like super easy.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
pop in
So,
your AirPods, listen to your favorite podcast.
ours. Yeah. Be great.
Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. So go check them out. But anyway, back to the show. There's a long intro for
So
that, but
They
whatever.
deserve it.
Tough shit. Fast forward through it. So the old ways.
Yep.
So it's funny because I bought a book a while back called The Old Ways, but it has nothing to do with what we're about to talk
Oh,
about.
really?
Yeah, I think it's here somewhere. It has to do with how they used to render fat and how they would store eggs and all that kind of stuff, just in case something happened in the
Oh,
world. You knew how they used to make certain foods and stuff back in the day. I know it's silly, but
Interesting.
that
That's not
is-
what we're going to talk
that's
about.
not what we're talking about today. What are we talking about? What's the old ways?
So the old ways, as perceived by Norm and Tina,
Right.
are when you tell people or yourself or both
Yeah.
that you've healed and moved on from something or accomplished something
Mhm.
in your life, and then you go back to your old ways.
Right. And I don't think it has to be you told somebody, right? It
Well,
could be
it
you actually
usually
made a
is.
change.
True.
You made a
True.
change, but then you fell off the wagon. Right?
Yes. However, I do believe it's an old Wayne Dyer saying. I don't know
Okay.
exactly what the saying is.
Right.
He basically says that when you tell people what you're doing and you put that stuff out there, that you open it up to failure and to fall apart, and
Interesting.
because you're bringing so many other things into it, so it kind of takes you off your course, if you will. That's not the exact wording, obviously, but it's basically
So
keeping the ego out of it.
He's okay. So by telling people he feels like it's based in ego,
To a certain extent,
and
yes.
and there are a lot of people out there that want to sabotage you.
Correct. Well, like, do it and then you can share it.
Right.
But when don't announce to people basically that you're doing this thing,
Sure.
because then you're opening the door for so much,
Yeah.
criticism and opinion and,
Yeah.
anything else you can
I
imagine.
don't think I was going to say, because I said the sabotage thing, there are people out there that want to sabotage
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Let's
there's
face
a lot
it,
of petty
right?
fuckers out there.
They want to, they don't wish you well. They're
No.
jealous. That's
Yes.
also their ego.
Yes.
But there's probably a lot more people out there that aren't necessarily jealous.
Yeah, that
of
want to
you.
see
So
people do well.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I entirely agree with that line of thinking. Now, I'm Norm and he's Wayne Dyer.
But I think it's
But-
also just so you stay focused on it too, and you don't come off your path because someone
Sure.
convinced you instead of doing it this way. What if
Right.
you did it this way? And then you're like, oh. And
Right.
then it kind of, I think it's more like it derails you
It's
from
almost
what
like
you're
a
trying to do.
Too many cooks.
Yeah,
in the kitchen
exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think he means it.
Okay.
He's not a negative guy.
No, I'm not saying
sorry,
he's negative.
He wasn't a negative
yeah,
guy.
right. He's no
Passed
longer
away,
with us.
unfortunately, but
Yeah, I don't think
I think that was his
I don't
his
mean it
reasoning.
to sound like maybe it's negative. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I don't. The thing that I don't want to see people do, because it's important, is not talk and not share things that are happening in their
Yeah.
life. If you're excited about it and you're
Mhm.
happy about it, I think you need to prepare yourself. And this isn't getting into the old ways, but it could certainly cause you to go back to your old ways if you tell the wrong person and they say the wrong shit. Right?
Well, you might get triggered, and that's usually you went back.
Right. Or they take the wind out of your sails. They shit all over what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, everybody knows that person, or maybe a couple of people out of all the people
that person.
Or you are that person, right? If you are that person and you shit on your own thing, you need to go back a few episodes to the deep dive and start working on that. But I think we all know people that will do that. They always have something, I don't want to call it negative, because sometimes they do have something negative to say. Yeah. Sometimes they think they're helping because they have information and they want to pass it along to you and share it with you because it's going to help, but it could actually derail. So sometimes it's better to keep your cards close until you're ready to lay them down.
Agreed.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I think that was the
gist of what he was trying to say.
I think so, but
well, I'm glad I wasted 3 minutes.
So
then figure that out.
No, but so going on to the whole going back to the old ways thing though, like we talked about how, like, I think something that almost everybody can relate to is like diet.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, I have to lose, 50 pounds, and you find a way, whatever.
Yeah.
However you lost it. You lost 50 pounds.
Right.
And you feel amazing.
Divorce.
Well, stress.
Lost 250 pounds. I got divorced.
But no, so you get to a point where you accomplished your goal.
Yeah.
And then you're all happy and you feel good about yourself. You're confident, all those things. And then a year, not even a year later, sometimes 6 months later. Because I think if I remember the averages, it was less than 5% of people keep weight off after 1 year. Yeah. Like you gain it back typically, like 95% of people gain it back in the first year. And it was like after 1 year, it was only like a 4 or 5%. It was a 4 or 5% amount. Sure. Something like that. But it's like, because you go back to, like, you didn't change anything really, especially if you found a way to cheat. Like, and I use the word cheat, meaning like you did, Ozempic or, whatever weight loss drug or, I mean, we're doing fat loss. Yeah. It's not weight loss. Like, so, like losing weight on top of it would be great. Like to do, we're preparing ourselves for that kind of stuff, but so it's still kind of like a shortcut, but at the same time, it's actually eliminating fat versus losing weight, right? So where a lot of the other ones are water pills. I mean, like there's so many. I mean, trust me when I tell you that this girl has done pretty much almost everything. Back in the day when you used to go pick up the pills, the fen from the doctor and all those. I mean, geez. I mean, so
what was the one? Clear blue. What was it? Was it clear blue algae? It was some sort of blue algae.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was something a long time ago as well. But yeah. But I mean, and then the vitamin B12 shots and the drops under your tongue. And anyway, so you have all these things, but you're going back then and doing the same things you were doing before that got you in the position where you needed to lose 50 pounds. Right. So if you didn't change your mindset, or you didn't change the reason you got to that, or whatever the reason may be, you're going to end up there again. Right. Because you went back to your old ways.
Right. Right. Well,
so I think we've all been there.
I think so. There's a song going around in my head, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I had this discussion a little bit with my sister today. So I was visiting my mom. My sister was there. We were talking, and so being transparent with everybody, we talked about tomorrow we're going to start eating better tomorrow, right? We're going to start working on that portion of it to help boost the other stuff that we're doing, right? It doesn't make sense for us to spend money to lose fat if we're not going to do other things to correct it and feel better.
Yeah. I just want to feel better.
And I previously did carnivore and it worked fine. And then I stopped doing it and went back to my old ways. Yeah. Then I put the weight back on. Now, did I put the weight, like I think with some folks, and her point was, well, a lot of people, she said she's read a bunch of stuff when people do that, or Atkins or whatever, paleo or keto or whatever. When they stop doing it, they put weight back on and then some. And I'm like, well, that's because they go back to doing what they did before.
Right.
Everybody's looking for a quick fix on shit.
Well,
and there's no quick fix. I mean, there's things to boost, and that's how you have to look at them. And we also have to be gracious to ourselves that when we do something like that, if we fall off the wagon for certain things, we have to pick ourselves back up and go back to doing the things that we know help us and make us feel better.
Yeah.
Instead of wallowing in, oh, look, I did it to myself again. We can't get into that. Right. The shame is a big part of that.
It is.
However, we're talking about old ways, and you have to, if you want to stick with new ways, right? It's like creating a habit, right?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
What is the thing? 30 days, I think it is, they say. And then you've
broken a habit,
a bad habit.
Yeah.
So, I think with anything that you want to do, like weight loss, and weight loss is a big one.
It is. And I think most people can relate, because I think almost everyone has dealt with weight in their life, whether it was losing it, gaining it, both.
Right.
I think everyone can
relate. Struggle with it, especially as we get older.
Oh God, yeah.
The food that's out there that we eat, the portions and all that.
Being that it's social.
We don't, very social. We don't stop to think, hey, I should stop putting all this stuff in my face right now because it's not serving me.
Right.
And you just keep doing it, Yeah. We saw it the other day on Easter. We were watching people eat gummy bears and gummy stuff, and they just kept eating them. But they weren't like, oh, let me try that. Let me try that. They were mindlessly sticking their hand in the bag, and they just keep sticking it in their face. Yeah. And
it doesn't
after a while, you've got 900 calories of fucking gummy bears in your system, and you still haven't eaten dinner. Yeah. I'm not sure why I did that. But
because it's time to change.
It's time to change your ways. It's time to change your ways, everybody. That's fucking funny. We're gonna have to go watch that. For those of you under 50, that's the Brady Bunch. That's an episode of the Brady Bunch. Anyway, time to change. Go look it up. Add it to your playlist. I think the weight is a very easy example for people.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about people in general, relationship wise, right? Mm-hmm. That's another one. People tend to go back sometimes after they've left someone.
Yes.
And they start, I don't know if regret is the right word, but they start feeling like they made a mistake and they want to go back.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. I see it on your face.
I mean, I don't know if they feel like they made a mistake. Like, I agree with you, but I don't know if I agree with that they made a mistake. Right. I think it's easier to dance with the devil,
Yeah. Right. Familiarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that familiarity?
Yeah.
Yes,
and it's going back to old ways. So I'm glad you segued into that. It just felt like the diet part was so much easier. I mean, that's like a super easy one for people to know.
Yeah.
But you're right. Going into the relationship one, did you have any examples that you can think of?
No, not at all. But you know what? It makes me think of.
There you go.
I don't. But it made me think of. I just literally just thought of this. There's an episode of 2.5 Men. And we center a lot of our conversations around television because that's who we are. As people,
Plus,
we love
that's
TV.
Where we see shit.
Right. It's an old episode of 2.5 Men, and it's Alan sleeps with this Janine Garofalo. He dates her. Mm-hmm. She sleeps with him, and then she loses her mind. She calls her therapist. As soon as they get done, she's all disgusted with herself. And she calls her therapist. She's like, Dr. So-and-so, I did it again. And he's laying there like, it's this whole thing where she freaks out and leaves. And then 2 days later, she comes back and apologizes and sleeps with him and goes through the whole cycle all over again. But she's going through like this weird shame spiral with it on the show, right? Obviously, it's not real life, but I think a lot of people do that. They fall into that trap of going back because of the the familiar feelings that they have
Well,
and the comfortability they have
yes.
in that.
And then there's also the bullshit of time.
Yeah.
So because you've had 20 years together or have known each other since you were little automatically means that
Right.
it's supposed to work or it's
Right.
supposed to be that way. Supposed to.
Supposed to, right? For those listening, Tina did air quotes.
Yeah. A nice shaming word that we grew up with.
Yeah, supposed to. Yeah.
But I think some people just don't like to be alone. I mean, like, what's his face in Big Bang? Do you have a girlfriend? Oh, yeah, I have a girlfriend. She's awful. Well, why do you have a girlfriend? Oh, because then I'd be alone like you. Like, he admits,
Yes,
like,
Stuart.
she's awful
Yes.
and he doesn't, whatever, but he'd rather have awful
Right.
than be alone. And it's like,
right. It's funny.
It's funny, but at the same time, there's people that
But
are
it's
doing that
realistic.
in real life.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about misery and watching so many miserable people around.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I have this theory, and
Okay.
I got this theory, I think I was like in my 20s at my first job at Fleet Mortgage. I remember the guys that were married that were assholes at the office
Okay.
would typically be the ones who were treated like assholes at home.
Oh, okay. So it had to
So-
go somewhere. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So they couldn't be assholes back to their wife. So they'd come to work and be an asshole to the rest of us. We all
Sure.
had to deal with them being assholes. And I think I was like in my late 20s or mid to late 20s. And I think like one day it was like ding, ding, ding. And I even sat down and asked one of them, is your wife a bitch to you at home? Like, I know. And he was like, why did you just call my wife a bitch? And I was like, no, I'm asking you, if she's a bitch to you, do you guys fight all the time? Like, what's your fucking problem?
Right.
Like, you're an asshole to everybody at work. Is it because you're treated like shit at home? And he didn't say anything. He just looked at me almost like, fuck you for saying it. And, oh my God, help me because thank you for noticing. It was kind of like like he didn't really know what to do. Right. So, and I didn't press it
Yeah.
because I figured it out. And I was like, okay, just like myself as someone who grew up never feeling heard by anybody.
Right.
I feel like, when someone finally hears you, you're kind of like,
I have so much to tell you.
oh, that. And then also kind of like, you're kind of like, I don't know if I trust you because why are you listening? No one ever listens to me.
Sure.
Why all of a sudden are you listening? Or you say things and that person will be like, why are you saying this? And you're like, wow, someone's actually listening. I better stop saying stupid shit.
Right.
Because someone actually cares and listens now.
Right.
Like I've gone through that. But it's funny because I remember that, right?
Yeah.
So you think that. So on a daily basis, when we're running into people at the store and you're running into people in the restaurant and your coworkers and other people, just driving in traffic with people, there's all this fucking misery everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
there's lots of great stuff too, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of aggression and misery
Yeah.
and pissed off and whatever. And it's like the cloud in Mario Karts, and everyone's trying to fucking pass it on to the next person.
Right,
Whether they want
right.
to or not, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty annoying. You have to like literally
Not pay attention.
you have to literally Wonder Woman that shit away from
Right.
you and be like, I'm not taking it
Wonder
on.
Woman.
But
Yeah.
seriously, I think that has a lot to do with it as well, though, is the old ways, right? Because you're afraid. So there's people that go to therapy.
Yeah.
Let's use this example.
Yeah.
There's people that go to therapy. Some people go to therapy because they believe in therapy and they think it helps them.
Yes.
There's other people that go to therapy because someone else told them to go to therapy because it will help them,
Right.
but they don't necessarily believe it,
Yeah.
but they go anyway. And then there's people who go to therapy to say they go to therapy and they don't fucking believe in it at all, but they
Sure.
just go.
Okay.
But they could say I have a therapist or whatever
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So the funny part is that a lot of when you get to that point where a lot of people are I just literally lost my fucking
I
train
hate
of
when that
thought.
happens.
What the fuck was my train of thought?
I
on
don't
that?
know. You did just like I did before. That's funny.
I had a point. Okay, so you go ahead and take it.
No,
No, take it from
So-
there. I lost
Take
my
it
I
from there,
literally
Jenny.
lost my train of thought on that.
It's okay. The it'll come
It's a
back
real
to you. I think
conversation.
the 3 examples that you gave, though, is the person that goes to it and believes that it's helping them.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
And when we say believes it's helping them,
yeah,
it's helping them.
correct.
Right. So when we want to say that, I wanted to make sure people understand we're not shitting on therapy.
No.
Right.
No.
They believe it's helping them. It is helping them.
That's
right.
correct.
And then I think each one of those is at a different stage. So the person that goes because somebody told them to go, it may or may not be helping them. And then the last one, that goes just to say they're going, they've never broken free from their old ways.
No,
that they're just going.
That's right.
To for whatever reason. Apparently they don't like their money because that's what they like to do with it. But the first person, they go through this work and they have to remind themselves occasionally that, when there's a trigger or I'm going to use the word temptation, right? To go back to a certain way. They have to fight that. They have to use the tools that they've learned to prevent themselves from going back to that. Or if they do, again, fall off the wagon, they have to be able to go back and go, okay, I did this. I know I did it. I made the conscious decision to do it. And I just need to get back up on the horse and do what I need, that I know to do, right?
Yeah.
If it's an easy fix like that. We're talking about, let's use the example of binge eating, okay?
Yeah.
You deprive yourself of something for a long time. You diet, you deprive yourself, you lose weight, you get to a certain place, but then there's something that always triggers you. It's a fucking Folgers commercial that makes you cry and wants you to go to the refrigerator and pull out the ice cream and sit on the couch and just eat it. So that commercial comes on, so you go get the ice cream and do it. You've been doing great. Well, okay, that's a small slip, in my opinion, because you can easily correct that almost immediately and fix it, right? When you make decisions about relationships to go back to somebody that maybe wasn't good for you ultimately, there's a reason you left.
Yep.
Okay. So you have to ask you, like we always say, they're an ex for a reason.
Yep.
Right.
And there only has to be one reason.
Right. And we're not talking about a booty call, right? We're not talking about, even though that's risky.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying you have an ex and you need some sex. So you go have it with them because that's what you want to do.
That depends on if you're emotionally prepared.
Correct.
If you're not, then you just
it's
fucked
risky.
yourself.
That's why I say it's risky.
Absolutely.
But I think you can, that's something you could correct quickly, but because it is risky, you may be pulled right back in again by making that type of a connection with somebody again. And that's a much harder course to correct.
Again, like you said.
Yes, right, right. Did you remember what you were going to say?
Well, and that's what I was going to say was when you go the old ways are when you go to therapy and you feel better about yourself and you understand, because let's face it, therapy is learning about yourself.
Yeah.
Learning about why you respond a certain way, why you react a certain way, why you overreact a certain way. Why you allow things in your life or people around you to treat you a certain way. Like, this is all the shit that you find out during therapy.
Yeah.
So as you're going through all that, the fucked up part is, and that I was going to say was going back to the old ways is, so you've learned to set a boundary. Like, that's what the biggest thing is right now, right? People, we grew up not even knowing what the fuck a boundary was. Now we understand that maybe when you're at a party with certain people and maybe you don't want to drink, you don't like how you feel if you drink too much. So you don't want to blow off your friends, but you go to a party and you set the boundary that after 2 drinks, that's it for you. You're not going to have any more than 2 drinks. But when everyone's trying to push you and whatever and trying to do stuff, this is where, like you talked about, the temptation of going back. So if you allow yourself to go back, you have to question a little bit, do you really need to put yourself in that situation then? Because maybe just because you went to therapy for one time or two
Mhm.
times or even for a month doesn't mean that you're mentally strong enough and capable to resist that temptation, right? I mean, that's the reality. But I think because, like you said, everybody wants everything like this.
Yeah.
You know, I went to therapy once, I'm fixed, everything's good, and I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And you know,
Well,
but
those people are foolhardy. Like,
well, but that's part of what I was gonna say though. That's why people slip back into their old ways, because they didn't really learn a new way. They said they learned a new way, but you're
Yeah.
fooling yourself though too. That's the part I think people
Right.
don't understand. And then for the people who are going for other people,
Mhm.
I don't know why I just did that as well.
Mm,
For
it's a
people
thing.
who are going for other
It's a thing.
people, that's not really sustainable either, because
No.
you're almost doing it, you're doing it to go, look what I did, look what I did for you, look what I
Right.
did, I changed for you. But then your relationship goes back to the way it was,
Right.
because you weren't really willing, you were changing because they wanted you to change. And then the reality is, why were they asking you to change? Because when you're with the right person, there's no, you don't tell that person you have to
Yeah.
change, otherwise we can't be
Okay.
together,
Okay.
right? Because I'm watching the stupid show and they're like, you need to change or we can't be together. What does he have to change? Everything.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I
Then,
think
okay, you're gonna change everything, then
right.
what the fuck?
Right. I think if you don't believe in the reason
Right.
why you're there, then it's not going to make a difference.
That's correct.
It's a band-aid for whatever it is you're
and it's just
trying to do.
prolonging the inevitable, and it
Yeah.
makes everyone miserable. Again, the misery to your kids, to your loved
Right.
ones, to your
Right.
family, to your friends, to your coworkers. I
Right.
mean, that's the reality, right? So
No, I agree.
that's
I
going back
agree.
to the old ways. I feel like that too, is that you didn't really learn, because when you learn, you can, and when you learn, you know to be able to say, I'm sorry, you know what? Like for me, I don't even put myself in situations. Like I don't
Right.
even, it's
Right.
not that I wouldn't be able to do it, because I would.
Yeah.
The problem for me is I have a sharp tongue and I'm not afraid to speak my mind, and I'll probably piss people off,
Yeah.
because instead of me letting me be there, people are going to they're going to push and push and push. And instead of me saying, let me go play in the sandbox with all these people that I don't want to play with,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I could kind of be there. Sometimes you're just better off
Well,
not jumping in the sandbox. Not
listen,
always, but sometimes.
no,
right?
right.
Because you
Nobody's
don't
saying
put yourself
always.
in that situation.
None of this is 100%.
Of course.
And I think I had an interesting thought when we were talking about the therapy thing. So first
Yeah.
off, if therapy, and I know we mentioned it a long time ago, therapy is meant to help you address certain issues that you have
Mm-hmm.
and to get them out, figure out, like you said a minute ago, what the triggers are,
Yep.
why they
Your
come up, why
behaviors.
your behaviors are the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
and also teach you the tools and how to
Right.
handle those
Yep.
situations.
You're coping.
It wasn't meant for you to go for an eternity, right?
Right.
That's a crutch.
Oh,
ultimately, it's a crutch.
Absolutely, it is.
Now, listen, if you're 60 years old and you've got, 55 years of fucked up life that you're trying to figure out, you might have to go for a long time to go to
Right.
therapy. I mean, you're only getting 1 week or 1 hour at a crack
Yeah.
typically. And a lot of times that's once or twice a week, maybe, if you can afford it. So you could be going for a long time, but the goal is not to go. It's to address a specific issue that you have
Potentially.
and how to. Now, that one issue could unpack other issues,
Correct.
right? That you now have to figure out how to deal with those, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Yes.
But
what?
I also know some people that go to therapy once a month just
Yeah.
because they don't have anyone else in their life
Yeah.
that they feel like they can talk to
Sure.
or trust with the things that they potentially are dealing with or holding on to.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, some of them it's literally just to have a third
Absolutely.
party to talk to.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
not even about like,
And
it's
that's
literally
okay.
like having a friend.
I
Kind of. I've
would-
had some people say to me, it's like having another, like a well, I don't remember the term used, as a
Yeah.
friend that's not a close friend, but
I would
you
almost
know.
say at that point, find a counselor somewhere and go to them because it's probably going to save you money
yeah,
and they're going to do the same thing.
yeah.
And
Or a
that's
life
not
coach.
anything against, no,
No.
life coach probably going to cost you just as much. And it's
Yeah.
not going to get covered by insurance.
That's true.
But the, you go see a counselor. they're going to listen. They may offer some advice if you're strong in your faith. If you go to church, you can always talk to your pastor or your priest or
That's
your
true.
deacon or minister or whatever it is
That's
for
true.
you. They're free. Maybe you put a little money in the kitty when you walk out the door or something for them. But if that's what you're going for, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad though. So I'm saying that because, hey, there's alternatives to that.
Right, of course.
If you're going because you just need to offload some information.
Yeah.
Right. And some of those people will have insight and experience that may assist you if you're looking for that. If all you want is to just talk to somebody, I'm sure there's probably an AI model out there you can talk to, and they'll listen and not offer any feedback. I was going to ask though, and I think I lost that too, but it was about therapy. Like you had brought it up before. I was going to ask something if you thought it was bad for people, but I don't remember what my point was going to be. So it's just going to be a bunch of
just like
brain farts in this episode.
No, apparently. But I was going to say though, you and I have also heard podcasts from actual therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists who have said that they know there's a lot of people in their industry that look at people as cash cows and and will take money like and manipulate the situation and all that kind of stuff to keep the person in therapy and not really helping so much because the person is like, oh, I'm in therapy, but it's like, and I think that's why unfortunately it gets a bad rap sometimes, and that some people are like, you've been in therapy for 10 years and you're still still in the same place you were 10 years ago, you haven't changed or whatever. And sometimes it's true. I mean, I think we know a couple people that we know they've been in therapy for a really long time, and
you don't see a change.
There hasn't been, like, they're literally they're still doing the same things that they've been doing the whole entire time. So, I mean, it's like you want to support, but again, are they going just because they needed someone to talk to, and maybe they're not when they're sitting there? Maybe they're playing cards with that person. Who the fuck knows what they're doing in therapy? I mean, it's not our business.
Though, but again, I think those people that spend that much time in there, they are not they're not listening and applying what they're learning.
Going back to old ways.
Right. That's what I'm saying is that's where I'm going with this is they're not looking to shed their bad habits, their old bad habits that are harming them.
Yeah,
they're not serving them.
They're trying to maintain the status quo, probably.
And I think the thing with therapy, and I know we've talked a lot about therapy, but it's a great example of how you can slip, just like weight loss, and dieting. I think, I don't know. I think it of course is a good thing, right? But you have to be serious about it, or else you're just wasting time. Absolutely. You're wasting your time. You're wasting everybody else's time. The doctor's getting paid, but there could be somebody that's waiting to get in there that you could have used that appointment. But I think part of it that makes it annoying sometimes is because it's pushed so much. Whereas, when we were growing up in the 80s, if you went to a therapist or to see a counselor or something, you probably were going to get put in a different classroom back then, right? You were going to be put in a classroom with the kids with the helmets and the ones that had learning disabilities and other stuff.
Or your family made you think that you were nuts.
Right. And maybe somewhere in the late 90s probably is where it started becoming more commonplace for people to actually take it seriously and go do it. You don't have to go to therapy to fix things that are happening in your life.
Especially nowadays, there's so many books,
like you said, life coaches,
podcasts.
Absolutely.
And, like Mel Robbins is, honest to God, one of my absolute favorite podcasts of all. She is so insightful and real, and the things that she talks about and the guests that she has on her show, she's amazing.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been sharing her with so many people. Like, I'm like, oh, hey, so-and-so, watch this one or listen to this one or watch this one. Like, this reminded me of you, because it's true. And I see a lot of people have really kind of jumped on that, Mel train there because
Yeah.
she's
Well, I think she's
very
been popular
insightful.
for a long time. I mean, she's got a gazillion
Oh
people
God, yeah.
listening and following her show.
Well, she had the whole Let Them thing is pretty amazing. But I
Yeah.
think people, again, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who talk about it.
Yeah.
They don't act on it and they don't incorporate it in their lives. They just talk about, like, the people, when I watch some of the people on some of these shows, oh my God, like, they use all the right words. Oh, this is my coping, whatever. Oh, I'm setting boundaries. Oh, this is toxic. I need to watch. It's like they use all the words from therapy.
Yeah.
But it's like they're so, like, misused.
They use all the words from fucking TikTok.
It's misused.
Yeah, which is stolen from therapy.
Misplaced.
Yeah.
It is. And it's like misplaced. And it's such a turnoff because it takes away from the people who do the real work.
Well, that's why I have the issue with the certain terms like narcissist and that kind of shit.
It's way overused.
Because it was picked up from somewhere and just,
I know.
It's like beat the shit out of the term until everybody's saying it for absolutely no reason.
I mean, technically, if you look at the definition, almost everybody can be called a narcissist.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, we're all serving ourselves in a lot of way. I think
if you look at the definition, it kind of almost everyone in the world, depends on every human being has ultimately the ability,
right? Because it's survival, right?
Yeah.
So I think with that term, and I don't want to get on this long tangent about that because I don't want to be pissed off for the rest of the night. But I think it's just it's meant for those that are taking advantage in a negative way. Yes. It's one thing to be able to take care of yourself, look out for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. But it's when you're taking advantage of somebody else for your own interest. Yep. That's when
you're
when
a shitty person.
Right.
Let's
like
just call it what it is.
Serial killer.
I have another example though.
Yeah.
From my past of someone that I knew, as far as the going back to old ways.
Yeah.
That I want to share, if you don't mind. So when I
I'm sorry, we're all out of time.
No. When I was in my 20s, my ex-boyfriend and I, he had a guy that lived a few houses away from him. He was a few years older than us. So let's say I was probably like 22. 21, 22. So he was probably 25 maybe at the time. It was just a few years older. He was such a nice guy. Like he was a little out there, like, a little ADD kind of guy, whatever. Yeah. But he worked for the phone company, and he had fallen. He was up on one of the poles, and he had fallen and hurt his back. So he was out on disability. That's actually how my ex met him. Was they ran into each other at the gym because he was in the hot tub because he wasn't allowed to work out anymore. But he was like a pretty big guy, like, buff, muscular kind of guy, whatever. And, obviously liked to work out. So that's how they started talking, because the ex was into bodybuilding and shit. And he lived like several houses down or whatever. So we started talking to him, and we found out that he used to be, so he was taking painkillers.
Okay.
Because he was, in pain from falling and whatever, and disability. But we had found out that he was an alcoholic at one point in time, and he kept falling off the wagon.
Yeah.
So he lived with his fiance. She was his fiance at the time. And she was kind of also like to drink and stuff like that. So the two of them kind of, like, she loved that he was on the drugs, the pills, and was taking more, like, they would go off on these weekend fucking benders, and he'd disappear for like a weekend and come back and be like, oh man, we did. And me and the ex we did not put any shit in our bodies. We just weren't like right. we didn't even drink and whatever. So it was kind of like we were trying to be supportive and at the same time not really understanding, Yeah. So anyway, so he kept going up and down with it. So he breaks up with her, and he was living in the house by himself, but he was also one of those guys who didn't want to be alone. So it's like he had like this little parade of little girls coming in and out and
Okay.
whatever. And he stayed sober for like 6 months, and he was doing really good. And then he went to a Cubs game
Okay.
by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't hear from him for 4 days. He just disappeared for 4 days. He didn't come back to the house. We didn't see his car. He wasn't answering his phone. Like, we didn't know what the fuck was going on. So finally, after like day 5, he comes back. He comes home, and turns out that he was hanging out at Wrigley. He was out in the bleachers, met a bunch of people, started drinking and partying, doing drugs, and he shacked up with some chick in the city for like 4 days at her place, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he fell off the wagon again. And
Right.
then the shame that he would feel, like he wouldn't even like look us, like he was almost hiding from us.
Yeah, of course.
And so we went over and we were like, listen, you don't have to hide. We're not shaming you. And he's like, you don't understand. Like, I hate that this, that this keeps happening to me, that I'm such a weak person. And we're like, you're not a weak person, but you have to, you have to be mindful of what you're doing.
Yes.
Right. And he was like, as he got a little bit older, he was like, he wanted kids. He wanted to get married, all this stuff. So he fell off the wagon. Let's say he was off for, we didn't really talk to him for, like 6-8 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And he kind of blew us off because that's all he was doing was partying. And then I remember he came back and he was like, can I talk to you guys? And he's like, okay. So, I met someone, and she's like on the straight and narrow, and I really want to make this work, and da-da-da-da. And he's like, I don't know, but the crazy part so I'm sorry, backtrack a little bit. He had gone, so after the Cubs game thing, he went to like AA meetings and stuff.
Okay. Gotcha.
Sorry, I forgot
Trying
that
to work
part.
to
He was trying. He really was trying,
Yeah.
but he went to AA meetings, and the sponsor told him, you don't go back. You don't hang out with your friends anymore. And he's like, well, I need to be around my friends. We were the only sober friends he had. All the other friends he had were not. So I remember he invited us out somewhere to go to lunch with him. And we went to lunch with him. It was at a restaurant bar. It was both, but we were sitting in the restaurant part. And all of his friends were sitting in the bar, and they kept coming over. Hey, Joe, blah, 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 come and have some shots with us. And I remember, like, I was mad. Like, because he was a nice guy, and it was obvious that he was a people pleaser. He was lonely. He was sad. He didn't have a job, all this kind of shit. So he was kind of easily manipulated by people. Okay. So I remember his friends calling him over, and I said, Joe, they're not friends. Those are not your friends. No, those are my buddies. No, Joe, those are not your friends. If they were your friends, they wouldn't be dragging you over to the bar and asking you, you've been out of AA now for 6 months. They wouldn't be asking, no, I'm not going to do anything. And I'm like, Joe, you're not strong enough. You just said it. You're not strong enough. Don't go over there.
Yeah.
He went over there anyway. And he's like, I'm not drinking anything. And then they were like putting drinks in front of him. And I remember I walked over to the one guy, his name was Randy. And I said, you are a fucking piece of shit, and you should be ashamed of yourself. He's like, I don't even know you, bitch. I go, well, I know you, and you're a piece of shit. Because you're a piece of shit, you want to drag this poor guy down with you. And I go, karma's going to get you someday, right? I was mad as his friend. And I said to Joe, we're here if you need us, but I can't sit and watch this anymore. Like, I was mad.
Yeah.
So we left.
Yeah.
And then we didn't talk to him. That's what happened is we didn't talk to him, and clearly it looked like I was mad at him, whatever. And then he comes back, and he met this woman, and he was all excited, and he said, I've been sober for like, 8 months now, So I met her, and I'm not supposed to really be with anyone for 12 months because of AA and this. So he did. He sobered up, and he was sober for like a year and a half.
Okay.
It was awesome. He met her. She, she said, we can't have kids until you're, you need to, get your strength back and all. Yeah, because he was dealing with the drug piece from the pills from being, getting off that stuff as well. Like, so it was kind of like, one addiction to the other.
And stuff.
Yeah, from his injury. And then I'll never forget, they went out to dinner one night, and there was like it was a little cafe out in Elmwood Park. There's a little cafe thing, and they had like a little thing in the back where you could drink and all this kind of stuff. And he he went to dinner with her, and then he dropped her off, and then he went back and met some friends there. And she followed him back.
Okay.
So he dropped her off, and then he lied about it. And he swears he didn't drink, but he did.
Okay.
Well, he called me, so she broke up with him. And then
because of that? Okay.
Yes, because he did it and he lied, and she's like, I thought I was enough for you. Why does this keep happening? Like, she was like, and it's, I'm not going to say I know what it's like to be on the other side of an addict, because I don't. I mean, it's got to be fucking hard as hell.
Right.
And so anyway, but he called me, and it was probably like after midnight, and he was like crying on the phone, and he's like, I'm sorry to call you so late. I don't know who else to talk to. And I was like 23 years old, maybe. And he told me that he wanted me to know that I was a very special person, and that he appreciated how much time I had spent with him, and that he's sorry that he let me down. And he was saying, and I'm like, Joe, you didn't let me down. You're okay. Well, Joe's like, I am going to say goodbye to everyone. And he told me literally that he had a gun pointed at his head. And I'll never forget to this day. I still get chills when I think about it, because all I thought was, if I hear this fucking gun go off and this kid blew his head off and on the phone with me, I don't even know what that would do to me.
Right.
And I'm like, Joe, you're too important. So I sat on the phone with him for a couple hours, and thank God he didn't want it that much that he did not do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so proud of you. And he's like, will you talk to her? And I said, I'll talk to her. I'll talk to her, whatever. So I talked to her, and I told her, I understand. We've known him a long time, blah, blah, blah. So they were able to work it out. And the good news is he ended up getting married, and he had a little girl, and he was so excited. I mean, so we had gone on with our lives. He moved out of the neighborhood, but he moved on, and he was doing really well.
Yeah.
And he had this little daughter, and he would send us pictures. And then one day I ran into her at the pharmacy at Walgreens, and I was like, hey, oh my God, I haven't seen you. How are you guys doing? And she just starts crying. And I'm like, what's the matter? And she's like, oh, you didn't know. I said, what? She said, yeah, Joe died. He fucking drank himself to death.
Oh, yeah.
He died from alcohol poisoning. She didn't get to him in time, and he fucking died. And I remember I just hugged her, and she was crying, and I was crying, and the little 5-year-old girl who doesn't have her dad was just, and I was like devastated. She's like, it finally killed him. And I remember but he just couldn't go. So that was an addiction. Right. Yes. There was an addiction, but the old ways part, he kept going back to he would be so happy for 6 months doing it the new way, but then he'd go back to the old way, and then he'd be happy, and then he'd go back to the old way. And it was just really sad, because
some people have to,
it's not good.
Some folks, obviously we know, or what we know of addiction or alcoholism, and treatment programs, you have to avoid that stuff for a long period of time. Yeah. Sometimes you can't be in those circumstances at all.
I know. I
My
agree.
brother is very triggered when he's around, he's said before, if we're all hanging out and somebody starts drinking, or they, if he sees that they're drinking, they're starting getting buzzed, he's out.
Yeah.
Because it's a trigger for him. And I haven't asked him what the trigger is, if it's because growing up, we'd watch our dad drink, he, you didn't know which dad it was today. Or if it's because of the addiction,
Yeah.
But it's an extreme example, but it is an example because they keep going back to
the old ways, around the old friends.
Right.
He went back to those old friends. Right. And I feel like I remember thinking, if we had a friend right now that something like that would happen, if they felt like being around us would trigger them, I would be sad that I couldn't be around them anymore.
Sure.
However, I would respect that, because I want them to be healthy, and I would love them.
Right. Yeah.
If they were around us and said, I can't be around booze, or I can't be around my ex, whoever, maybe it's a person that they can't be around, I would 100%, there would no questions asked.
Right.
So it it's made me sad to think that those guys, I could still picture the way, but he couldn't. They were his friends. He grew up with them. They all knew each
Yeah.
other. And this is my point. Just because you've always known people doesn't mean they're good for you.
Right.
It doesn't mean they're healthy.
Right.
It doesn't mean they're going to be part of your future. It doesn't mean they're part of your growth.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying goodbye. And there's also nothing wrong. There's no reason to be mad or rude or aggressive about it.
Right.
Like, you can wish people well and just know that they're not for you anymore. They don't fit into your life anymore. But you don't have to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be around you anymore. You don't fucking fit my... Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like that.
No, it doesn't. I think
that's where people get scared about it and why they continue.
Of course.
Because they're afraid that they have to break up with people and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do. And I think it's important for people to understand, we're using the terminology, the old ways, because it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Right. We start talking about, when you talk about falling off the wagon, that's usually for addiction, you know, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. Whether it's a relationship thing,
you keep going back to the same person.
Correct.
You break up,
fall
you
back
make
into
up.
your
You break
old
up, you make
patterns
up.
of things, right?
No.
And that's where your deep dive and your therapy and those types of things help you break your old patterns, because that's where a lot of it comes from. Money is not even one we even really touched on it during this, but people have this, oh, my credit's shit. I've spent all this money. I got to fix it. And then they fix it. And then,
and then
they go back to the same way, because they either they have a spending problem, or that's their therapy.
Just don't care.
Right. Well, it's not.
Some people don't care.
Some people don't care because it's, they can get rid of it and they get what they want. Right.
That's correct.
We know that there are people that do that for sure. But there are also people that, for whatever reason, fall into a pattern. There's usually a reason behind that.
Shopping is a therapy for people.
Yeah, it's a dopamine hit. Is ultimately what it is. That's why a lot of them will immediately get buyer's remorse.
Oh yeah,
and they're just like, shit, I bought this $400 thing and I have 4 of them already. Why do I need this? I do it.
I did it during COVID,
right?
Because I was trying not to binge eat during being stressed. So instead of eating, all of a sudden I'd find myself buying dumb shit on Instagram.
Right. Well,
look at this gadget.
Instagram.
And you'd be like, oh God,
we can thank Instagram
gadget.
for showing us all this amazing dumb shit. Thank you, Instagram, you bastards. Some of it was cool.
Fun stuff,
I know, we have tons of
fun stuff
in here.
and lots of fun things to give away to people,
Absolutely.
Which was really cool.
I found out, like, our little neon sign. I found that on an ad, and it's cool,
But
all
anyway,
kinds of stuff like that.
It does. Sometimes it fills a void.
It does.
Unfortunately.
And I think that's a big part of what you have to, before you do it, if you have the ability to do it beforehand, think about what it is you're trying to get from going back to that way. And if there's an alternative. And then if you don't think about it beforehand, you're certainly going to think about it afterwards, because you're probably going to have some regret. You're going to have some shame or whatever.
And you're going to be stuck in the loop again on the treadmill.
Right.
Or not in the treadmill, the hamster wheel.
The hamster wheel, right. Yeah. I think it's important not to get yourself caught up in the shame of it, because it happens to all of us with lots of things.
You didn't learn the lesson, and now you got to go back and learn it. Or you learn the lesson faster. Like, if you've ever been someone who's gone back to an ex, you're like, oh yeah, this is why. Like, you literally are like, oh yeah, okay, this is why.
There it is.
Because when people say we're working on it, we're working on it, or you're working on it, and they're still being who they are. And and the thing is that
then what are you working on?
That if you were already this far apart and you're working on yourself and they're not, guess what?
You just get farther apart. Right.
Like, you didn't come closer. Well, you actually went further.
Even addicts, when they're dedicated to getting clean, slip.
Yeah.
They slip, and then they're because they look at a lot of the harder. Programs look at days. You start back at day 0. It's like the fucking sign at the business, you know, it's been 0 days since we've had an injury, right? It's the same idea that they're going through, but
that's definitely a more extreme.
Of course it is.
To me, I know that was his addiction, but I also know that we tried so hard to say, stop. If you need to not go back to, like, we begged him not to go to the Cubs game. Oh, no, I'm just going to go. I'm going by myself. I'm having a good time. And then gone for 4 days,
Nothing
whatever
anybody was telling him. He hadn't found the thing yet that he wanted to live for strong enough.
Well,
that
I thought he did when he had his little girl.
No, I know you thought he did, but he proved that he didn't.
Yeah,
there was something that caused him to go back.
I know. It was sad,
and it had a strong hold on him. But I think even in your own relationship, within a relationship, you have to think about patterns that you've had with other people.
Yeah,
and not go back to those patterns because they were an issue previously. But it's important to recognize why you feel the need to want to go back to that pattern. What's creating that? There's a catalyst in there. There's a trigger in there that makes you want to go back to that spot.
Well, that's why it's important when you get the opportunity to be in a new relationship with someone that you're able to freely speak about those things.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, not in a blaming way. Like, oh, my piece of shit ex, blah, 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 blah. It's more, this would happen, that would happen. Like for me and my ex-husband, his PTSD and my abandonment just
didn't work well together, right?
Yeah, we didn't realize it till we weren't together anymore, but one triggered the other, and then all of a sudden we were running on the hamster wheel together, and then we didn't talk about it, and we swept it under the rug, and then it seemed like it went away, and it really didn't go away, and then it happened again, but it was the same, kind of the same, but it felt different, but it was still, and it was like it wasn't going to be fixed. It wasn't going to be fixed, and it wasn't that he was bad, I was bad. It just together it was not a good mix.
Right.
It was not a good mix because and then the crazy part is how amazing it was that something as traumatic as being left and then having to get divorced and stuff. It was the things that I learned. Like, I literally found me with that.
Yeah.
It was like amazing. Like, I thought I knew who I was. I did not know until I had to look abandonment literally right in the face and go, okay, how am I going to not let this ever fucking happen to me ever again? It was crazy, but it's like so crazy to think that such a low point in your life is actually like the fucking saving grace that actually you shed your previous everything about yourself, that whatever, and then you get to be you all the time, like unabashedly. Got that word?
Yeah, you wanted to work that way.
Yes. Being yourself. I love it. And that's what I love to see for people. To me, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That I want to see for people.
Agreed.
Even if I don't like them, if I don't, hang out with them, they're not my friends, they don't like me, whatever. If you're being yourself and you're enjoying your life and doing all the shit you want to do the way you want to do it, and you're not hurting anybody else, more fucking power to you.
Right. So, last thing, I had an example in there, because I said there's a song, a stupid Barry Manilow song.
Which one?
It's called The Old Songs.
Okay. I don't think I know that.
I know it. I could probably sing it right now. I'm not going to, but I probably could. But the whole point is he's hoping that if he puts on these old records, it's going to trigger the old feelings.
Got it.
And bring them back together again, right?
Okay.
That maybe the old songs will bring back the old times is what is actually part of the lyrics. And I can't not think of this stupid song the whole time we've been sitting here.
Interesting.
And my brain goes that way constantly as we're talking anyway. You'll say something and it's a lyric in a song. You say something, it's a lyric in a song. But that song, this whole time, The Old Ways, it makes me think of the old songs. And it's, again, like I said, it's maybe the old songs will bring back the old times and make her want to stay. That's what it is. And make her want to stay. So it's, I just thought it was funny. It's actually a stupid, but very on point kind of example for what we've been talking about.
And I don't remember what we were just talking about the other day where I heard this. I think it was on Mel Robbins' podcast about how we try to go back to previous version. Like we want things to go back the way they were, when in reality, we're grieving that part of ourselves because we can't go back that way, because
Right.
that's not, we're not that person anymore.
Right.
You grew from
Right.
that. You had life experiences, things happened,
Right.
whatever might have happened in your life, whether big or small, that you're not that person anymore. You can't, at our age, we can't go back to the 1980s and go dance and be fucking free like
Right.
we were back then, and there was
Right.
not a care in the world. Like, as much as we'd love to be like, hey,
Right.
we can't.
Not to that extent.
We
anymore.
cannot do it.
Right.
We
Well,
got
we can't go back and be a
thank God we
teenager,
have
right.
well, thank God we have the memories that we made, when we did, and we can feel them, but we can't go back and beat that. That part of you is, it's just not, that's not you anymore.
Right.
That's an old version of yourself.
Right.
That, so I think
Very true.
sometimes we forget that. We want to go back to that, but that means now you're denying who you are now. And instead of wanting to go back to that, try to understand what it is happening within you right now that you don't like about yourself or feel good about yourself.
Right.
That you're trying to go back to a previous version, instead of, like, why don't you like who you became? What happened in your life, or what is happening in your life? And that's where I think the secret is. Instead of trying to go back and find something that you're never going to get, that's actually makes it worse, in my opinion. You're chasing after something that can't happen.
Right.
Work on what you can control, which is, why am I feeling that way now? You know what I mean? I think that's a big part of it.
I agree.
So
anyway, good topic.
Yeah. We should probably remind people that we are not therapists.
We don't have to remind them. They know we're not therapists.
Yeah.
But we're not therapists. We're not giving medical advice.
No.
We're just a couple of yahoos that like to talk about life and experiences. And this is...
And if you need medical attention, you make sure you seek that medical attention.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if there's any sponsors out there that want us to plug them for medical attention or medical help or whatever, we'd be happy to help you guys out with that. Just reach out to us. You can reach us at realshowertalk@gmail.com or Facebook, Real Shower Talk.
Instagram, real.shower.talk.
Right.
Is that right?
It is right. It is right. So,
and thank you, all of you who have been sending the love and support and the messages. And again, for both of us, I'll speak for both of us, how grateful we are that people are actually feeling good about themselves and happy with some of the things that they're hearing, and that they don't feel alone.
Absolutely.
And that we talk about things that they wish that they were able to talk about, and maybe we're giving them that little nudge to hopefully be able to have better relationships with themselves and with the people in their lives. So,
for sure.
Yay.
Yay. Anyway, until next time.
Bye.